Today we're going to talk about vocabulary words that relate to evidence of evolution. So please make sure you have your notes in front of you and that you're ready to join us. The first vocabulary word we're going to discuss is divergent evolution. In divergent evolution, organisms have a common ancestor. So back in time, thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, these organisms are distantly related because they have a common ancestor. So here are some great photos of that. We can see the common ancestors of this leopard and this lion, and they have a common ancestor, even though now they are no longer part of the same species. Divergent evolution occurs when organisms live in different environments and therefore have different selective pressures applied to them. So, for example, what that lion experiences in the African savanna is much different than what that jaguar experiences in the American rainforests. And so, because of these different environments and these different selective pressures, these organisms develop a wide variety of adaptations. And as a reminder, that prefix di means two. So we have two different species that are coming out of a common species that was a common ancestor. So here, these birds, all of these birds have common ancestors. Birds share a common recent ancestor, but they have very different appearances due to their different environments. So specifically in this picture, we can notice the variety of beak shapes that these birds have. That is because the types of food that they eat and the environments that they live in are vastly different. So they need beaks that are specialized in order to fit those different environments. So here again, we can see this one common ancestor of bird radiating into these different types of species of birds, some that have beaks that are good for nectar, some that have beaks that are good for getting insects, others that are better for crushing seeds. But these organisms are related because of divergent evolution, and they have this common ancestor that they share. Now, opposite to divergent evolution is convergent evolution. In convergent evolution, ancestors do not have a recent common ancestor. And this is important to know that organisms that do not have common ancestors can still have similar physical traits. So for example, here are a picture of a fish, a mammal, a reptile, and a bird. And all of these animals share streamlined bodies that help them live their life underwater. However, they do not share a common ancestor. In fact, they develop these similar structures and similar adaptations because they live in similar environments and therefore have similar selective pressures. So in that previous picture we saw, all of those organisms developed similar types of bodies because they all live in the water or hunt in the water or have some sort of part of their life that is served majority in the water. And so they developed those similar adaptations. Here's another example we can look at. Birds, butterflies, and bats all have very similar traits due to their similar environments and their need to fly. However, these organisms do not share a recent common ancestor, and therefore they do not have a common ancestor who had wings. They developed these traits independently because they lived in similar environments. So once again, we have divergent evolution. Divergent evolution is where we share a common ancestor, and we have convergent evolution where we do not share common ancestors, but organisms have similar traits. Now we're going to talk about types of structures. The first we're going to talk about is homologous structures. Homologous structures are a result of divergent evolution. So this is the result of divergent evolution, which we just learned about. And organisms who have or share homologous structures have a recent common ancestor. That's very, very important. but they adapted to different environments. So organisms that have homologous structures are anatomically similar. However, they serve different functions. And if you remember the prefix homo, homo means the same. So they have similar or the same anatomical structures. That's like bone structure, but they have different functions or different jobs. So we can see that here. In this picture, we see humans, dogs, horses, and bats. All four of these animals have a recent common ancestor that is a mammal, because all of these organisms are mammals. And we can see that anatomically, they share many similar bones. The scapula, the humerus, all the way down to the phalanges. And those are color-coded here for you. However, we know that the arm of a human serves a much different function than the leg of a dog or a horse. And that serves even a vastly different function than the wing of a bat. So even though human arms help us to be able to grab things and lift boxes and things of that nature, and dogs and horses, their similar anatomical structure helps them run and jump, and bats' similar structure helps them to fly. Even though they have vastly different functions, they share anatomically similar structures. And so these are homologous structures. So now we've learned that homologous structures relate to divergent evolution. And now we're going to learn about analogous structures. And if you've guessed that those relate to convergent evolution, you would be right. Analogous structures are a result of convergent evolution. Organisms who have analogous structures have no recent common ancestors, but because of their similar environments, they have similar structures. So analogous structures are anatomically different, but they have similar functions. So let's look at this picture a little bit together. In this picture, we can see the bones of a bat. We also saw those in a previous example. We can also see the bones of a bird, and we can see that while they have some similar looks, they're very different structurally and anatomically. And then last but not least, butterflies don't even have bones in their wings, right? And so these three structures all serve a similar function. They allow the animal to fly. However, anatomically, they are very different because butterflies don't even have bones in their wings. So, long story short, we've learned about divergent evolution and the way that it relates to homologous structures, and convergent evolution and the way it relates to analogous structures.